Hello and welcome to a reading of Eternal, a novel by Israel Barbusano. This is a work of fiction, it's all made up. Please don't kill yourself trying to reach Eternal. In dedication to my wife, without whom Eternal would have never existed. Until death do us part. It was a solemn oath for them, a promise to be together until the very end. When the blast reached them, the oath was fulfilled. Death took them, swift, ruthless. Alexandra Gretchen thought she'd arrive at the gates of heaven. Errant Gretchen knew to expect oblivion. They were wrong. Death took them, and so began their journey. They saw death coming. The midsummer twilight erupted in a flare of white. The horizon vanished, clouds broke into mist. Tremors rumbled up their feet and into their chests. Colors bled away, leaving behind a world of light and shadow. Her muscles tensed, his hand clutched at her side, instinctively pulling her close. Their eyes met. A wall of sound crashed upon them, the ear-splitting death throes of a rupturing sky. Airborne fire swallowed their breath, consumed their thoughts. Darkness followed. Awareness came back in a rush, and then Errant was falling. The ground met his feet before he could brace himself for impact. He landed with a thump and tumbled down the gentle slope as if he'd jumped out of a moving car, seeing only a glimpse of the oncoming wall before his shoulder slammed against it. The collision left him groaning on his side, gasping for air through bared teeth. After long moments he labored to sit up against the wall. The floor under his fingertips felt hard and smooth like polished marble. Errant finally opened his eyes, and 1,000 shades of red and magenta crowded his field of vision. A tangle of ramps, bridges, tunnels, and platforms sprawled in every direction, each one of them colored in the reds and purples of raw flesh. Dozens of contorting paths of every size twisted and turned all around him, ascending, descending, burrowing into each other. They formed a labyrinth of pathways that stretched as far as he could see. Errant gawked as he got to his feet, the pain from his collection of scrapes and bruises temporarily forgotten. He stood on one platform of many. A number of paths of varied widths and viabilities led away from it. A towering wall rose to his left, while the right side ended abruptly and plummeted into the unknown. The floor tilted at a slight incline towards the cliff. Every surface seemed to shift subtly, like pulsing to the rhythm of a capricious heartbeat. The lighting, eerily homogeneous, had no obvious point of origin. He blinked and stared. A deep sense of unease stirred in his gut. "What the hell just happened?" he said out loud. He spun in place, looking everywhere. There was no one around to answer his question. "All right," he thought. "All right, don't panic. Let's figure this out." His last clear memory was of standing in the backyard. He'd had dinner in the oven. Alex had just finished her workout, called him outside, and pointed at the horizon. I smile, walk over and pull her close. "Oh, let go," she says. "I'm all sticky." "You'll have to make me." She doesn't make me and watches the setting sun. My arm is around her waist. Her hand is in my back pocket. It's a beautiful sunset. And then the flash of light, the tremors, the vacuum and horrible heat from the blast. The look in her eyes, the certainty. They had died. "No," he whispered. "No, that's impossible." Errant looked at himself, eyes wide and breath shallow. His hands and arms seemed fine, his wedding band was still there, as were his clothes and glasses. His disheveled mat of blonde hair remained firmly attached to his scalp, and his cheeks were rough with a 3-day stubble. Veins still stood out under the pale skin of his wrist. He felt for a pulse and found it. His heart was merrily pounding away, as if nothing had happened. He wasn't dead. He couldn't be. This is impossible, he thought. It's a hallucination, all of it. It was a logical explanation that he would have loved to believe. He would have been convinced of it, had his senses not told him differently. The sensation reminded him of waking from lucid dreaming. His oniric self would always doubt and wonder, is this still a dream? Am I awake now? He'd worry and fuss and not have a great time at all. Eventually, Aaron would wake up and feel foolish to have missed the obvious difference between dream and reality. The certainty of no longer being asleep would be self-evident. The same certainty nagged at him now, which was an impossibility. He should have been a charred husk, unable to feel, ask questions, panic. He wasn't supposed to be anymore. He puzzled at it while watching his hands open and close tentatively. This new sensation, this vibe, it felt as if reality itself was different. More authentic and tangible, more crisp and immediate. Aaron felt like he'd been dreaming all along and was finally awake. As he allowed the feeling to wash over him, he simply knew, and the knowledge was enough to keep fear at bay. He'd landed in the afterlife. "No freaking way," he said, and a stab of pain flared behind his temple. Evidence that death was not the end of his journey through existence jarred everything he believed in. A complete new reality sprawled before his eyes, yet these concerns were but quiet footnotes under the sudden realization that seized him. "Alex?" He looked all around again, a knot tightening the pit of his stomach. No answer came. "Alexandra?" No echo wrapped around her name. It was as if the walls had swallowed up the sound waves instead of letting them bounce off and resonate through space. He put his hand around his mouth and inhaled deep. "Alexandra!" His voice got lost in the labyrinth. Aaron paced the perimeter of the ledge, ignoring awful headache and aching knee. He peered down the cliff, craned his neck around corners, and yelled her name repeatedly, eyes frantically searching for a hint of dark skin or short curls. He held motionless and strained to hear a possible call for help, but only ear-ringing silence answered his voice. He stood in the middle of his ledge, a haze clouding his sight. Alex was gone. "She's in heaven," he thought. "She went to heaven and I'm in hell, just like she feared." He knew that such a thought should have brought a bout of panic with it, but his safety didn't seem all that important at the moment. What if Alexander's fears had been well-founded and they'd been separated forever because he didn't believe? The concept of eternal punishment for the faithless had seemed absurd to him just 10 minutes ago, but he could no longer dismiss it out of hand. Aaron forced himself to focus and search the area for telling signs of his fate. He wouldn't have expected hell to be so empty. He strained to hear approaching footsteps or perhaps a cackling laugh, but the absolute silence that engulfed him remained undisturbed. No demons showed up to stuff him in a boiling pool of lava or stab him with barbed pitchforks. He frowned while surveying the area once more. Wasn't a welcoming party in order here? Some form of guidance? There wasn't even a lousy sign to tell him where to get his punishment. Maybe hell is eternal waiting. Then again, why should anything conform to a certain religious mythology? The afterlife could be something else entirely. He could be in a purgatorial waiting room, a shroud between existences, a dream bubble in the furthest ring for all he knew. Their separation might have been purely accidental. Best not to make any assumptions. "The afterlife," he breathed. Aaron shook his head at the words. Questions kept piling up in his head, from the most basic "how did I get here?" to a primal "am I in danger?" and everything in between. They got soundly trumped by a far more pressing concern. Where did Alex go? 6 different routes would lead him away from his ledge. 2 clear dead ends, 1 misshapen bridge, a too steep tunnel, a path to another platform below, and a gnarled trail up and around the curved wall. He eyed each one, fretful, anxious. None of the paths looked promising. Should I even leave this place? What if I take off and she shows up here shortly after? Aaron was trying to decide what to do when he noticed the monster flying toward him.